Welcome, everybody, yet another episode of the Wrestling vs. the World podcast. And you're all enjoying today, sweet. If not, what the hell ever. So it's time for another big episode, a history of a specific championship. Today, it's going to be over the history of the WWF/WWE Women's Championship from when the title was resurrected in 1998 up until it was permanently retired in 2010. And no, this championship does not share any lineage with the recent women's championships that we've had in WWE. So, getting that out of the way right now. So, in the fall of 1998, the WWF would revive their women's championship and the division after the title was abandoned in December of 1995. Their previous champion, Alundra Blaze, was released from the company that same month, as the company abandoned the division as a whole, and the title was disposed of on WCW Nitro shortly thereafter. Jacqueline would defeat Sable in a singles match on the September 21, 1998 episode of Raw to become the new inaugural Resurrected Champion, yet the title would not be shown on television until the October 12, 1998 episode of Raw is War. Sable would then later defeat Jacqueline for the title at Survivor Series, ending her reign at just under 2 months. So, a pretty short run right off the start. During Sable's run as champion, she turned heel, portraying a character as a woman who gained an ego following her successful Playboy cover shoot. And Sable's run would end after almost 6 months when she lost to Deborah on May 10, 1999 episode of Raw is War in an evening gown match. Despite Sable disrobing Deborah, on-screen Commissioner Shawn Michaels declared that Deborah was the winner instead because he made the rules and decided to change them. Deborah's run as champion would last over a month until she lost the title to Ivory then on the June 14, 1999 episode of Raw is War. Now, after this, Ivory would lose the Women's Championship 4 months later at the No Mercy pay-per-view to the Fabulous Moolah, that infamous match, only to then regain the title from Moolah 8 days later on the October 25th, 1999 episode of Raw is War. At least from my knowledge, Fabulous Moolah may be the oldest, if not one of the oldest, title holders in history at the time of her title win, so there was at least history made there. Ivory's time as champion for this reign also lasted only a little over a month and a half, before losing it to the Cat in a Fatal 4-Way evening gown elimination pool match at Armageddon, which also featured Jacqueline and BB, aka Barbara Bush. Then the Cat would lose the title a month and a half later to Hervina, who was actually Harvey Whippleman in disguise, on the January 31st, 2000 episode of Raw is War in a Lumberjill Snow Bunny match, only for Whippleman to lose it 3 days later to Jacqueline in a quick singles match on SmackDown on February 3rd, 2000. Then Jacqueline's run with the title will last around 2 months before then suddenly losing it to Stephanie McMahon on the March 30th, 2000 episode of SmackDown. So yes, the title had to be on a McMahon again. Stephanie's run would last just under 5 months before losing the title to Lita in the main event of the August 21st, 2000 episode of Raw is War. So I don't care what the company says, the Trish and Lita main event that happened years later was not the first one. This one main evented this show. Lita's run would last 2.5 months before being pinned in a fatal 4-way match to the winner Ivory, which also featured Jacqueline and Trish Stratus on the November 2nd, 2000 episode of SmackDown. Ivory's third reign would then last 5 months, as she was part of Right to Censor, before losing this title in an extended squash match to Chyna at WrestleMania 17. Now, this title reign would have its issues because this title would become vacant in November when Chyna left the company. Her last on-screen appearance being at Judgment Day when she successfully retained the title against Lita, and her title reign was counted as lasting about 7 months. So then the title was vacant, it was put on the line in a 6-pack challenge at Survivor Series, which Trish Stratus would win, with the other participants in the match being Lita, Ivory, Mighty Molly, Jacqueline, and the debuting Jazz. So Trish's first title run, unfortunately, would not last very long, as it only lasted about 2.5 months. She would then lose it to Jazz on the February 4, 2002 episode of Raw in a singles match. During this run, then we would see some changes in the company as the draft would see Jazz in the Women's Championship be drafted over to Raw. However, the title was not yet Raw exclusive, but during this time in Jazz's reign, she would be recognized as the final WWF Women's Champion and first WWE Women's Champion when the company was forced into its name change in May of that year. So Jazz's title run will only last a little over 3 months until she lost it on the May 13, 2002 episode of Raw in a tag match with Stevie Richards against Bubba Ray and Trish Stratus, where Stevie Richards' Hardcore Championship and Jazz's Women's Championship were both on the line. So Trish getting the win here, resulting in both Bubba Ray and Trish Stratus becoming new champions on this Raw. Trish would then lose the title to Molly Holly the next month at King of the Ring, but then regained it 3 months later at Unforgiven. Now, one thing to know here as well, during Molly Holly's run with the title is that during the summertime, the title finally got its update. Because on the August 5th, 2002 episode of Raw, in a backstage segment, the title finally got its updates, where the WWE logo was finally on the center plate, the side plates had the updated WWE logos on them, and the title belt on the front actually finally had a nameplate to recognize who the champion was. So, August 5th, 2002, the belt got its update. Shortly after Trish's third reign that began at Unforgiven, we would find out that the Women's Championship would then finally become Raw exclusive, as sometimes it would be defended on SmackDown. So finally now, as the fall kicked in, the title finally became brand exclusive, and SmackDown would be left without a title for any women to compete for. Trish's third reign would then only last a couple of months. She would lose it at Survivor Series in a hardcore match against Victoria, and her title run would last about 4.5 months before losing the title back to Trish Stratus in a triple threat match that included Jazz at WrestleMania 19. But then Trish's fourth run would last just less than a month, as she would lose it back to Jazz in a singles match at Backlash. But then with Jazz, her title run here would only last a couple of months, because on the June 30th, 2003 episode of Raw, she would be forced to put the title on line in a battle royal, and it would be won by Gail Kim in her televised debut match. Unfortunately for Gail Kim, this would be her only title run in WWE history, as she would then lose the title the next month to Molly Holly on the July 28th, 2003 episode of Raw. So this would be Molly Holly's second run with the title, and it would last 7 months for then losing it in a Fatal 4-Way elimination match on the February 23rd, 2004 episode of Raw to Lita, Jazz, and the eventual winner, Victoria. So Victoria would start her second run with the title. This would last 4 months before losing it at Bad Blood. Originally, that was just a singles match against Gail Kim, but then it became a Fatal 4-Way that included Lita and Trish Stratus, with the latter, Trish Stratus, becoming the winner of this championship for her 5th reign. So Trish, she would have her 5th reign start. It would last 6 months before losing it to her longtime rival Lita in the main event of the December 6, 2004 episode of Raw. But then, unfortunately, this title reign for Lita would be very short-lived for her second title run, as she would lose the title back to Trish Stratus at New Year's Revolution in 2005, in a match where Lita suffered a left ACL tear after doing a running Luthez press off the apron to the floor onto Trish. So Trish would become a 6-time women's champion, and this would be the one where she would disappear from television due to an injury for 4 months after Backlash, but would return as a babyface on the September 12, 2005 episode of Raw, befriending and helping become the aide of Ashley Massaro, who had won that year's Diva Search contest to feud with the Ladies in Pink. So Trish would then, as 2005 entered to 2006, she would enter a feud with Mickie James, who was an obsessed fan of hers. Mickie would then dethrone Trish Stratus at WrestleMania 22 to win the Women's Championship for the first time, ending Trish Stratus' historic 440-plus day title reign, despite having a long period where she did not defend the title and completely negating that 30-day title rule that sometimes the company would like to remind us about. So Mickie's reign for the first time would end up ending after 4.5 months, as she would then lose the title in a one-on-one match to Lita on the August 14, 2006 episode of Raw. So Lita was the 3-time women's champion, but then she would lose the title right back to her longtime rival Trish Stratus the following month at Unforgiven to give Trish her record-setting 7th women's championship reign, which would then be vacated the following night due to Trish retiring at Unforgiven from full-time in-ring competition. After this, as a result, a tournament would be held for the vacant championship, and that would result in Lita going one-on-one against Mickie James at Cyber Sunday for the vacant title. Fans would vote it as a Lumberjill match, and Lita would win the title for her 4th and final time in her career. And shortly after this, she announced that she would retire at Survivor Series, put the title on the line against Mickie James, and would lose it 3 weeks later at Survivor Series in what was initially Lita's full-time in-ring action retirement match. So Mickie would be a 2-time women's champion. This would last just under 3 months before losing the title to Melina on the February 19, 2007 episode of Raw in a singles match. Now, a notable thing that we would see a couple months later is that the title had actually changed hands twice at a house show on April 24, 2007 in Paris, France. Initially, Mickie James was put in a triple threat match against Victoria and Melina, and Mickie would accidentally win the match to become women's champion, but then an immediate rematch would happen afterwards, saying in storyline Melina wanted a rematch because she wasn't the one pinned in the match, so then she would get an immediate rematch and win the title right back from Mickie James in a quick fashion. So this whole 12-year period that we're talking about with the Women's Championship, these would be the only times where the title would change hands on an untelevised show. So Melina's was Women's Champion again, and her 2 title reigns combined during this period will last 4 months before then losing it in June at Vengeance Night of Champions in a singles match to Candice Michelle. So then Candice would hold this championship for 3.5 months, but then would lose the championship in October to Beth Phoenix at the No Mercy pay-per-view. Beth's run would involve dominance, last over 6 months after this, before then suddenly losing in a one-on-one match to Mickie James on the April 14, 2008 episode of Raw. Now, during Mickey's reign, it was then during this time it was also announced that SmackDown would receive the Divas Championship to counter the Women's Championship over on Raw. So the SmackDown brand finally had their own title for their women's division to compete for. So during Mickey's 4th reign as champion, it would end after only 4 months at SummerSlam, when herself and Kofi Kingston, who was the Intercontinental Champion at the time, would lose to Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix in an intergender tag team winner-take-all match at SummerSlam. So as a result, Santino would be the new Intercontinental Champion, and Beth Phoenix would once again become Women's Champion. So then this run for Beth Phoenix would last 5.5 months, would lose the title at Royal Rumble 2009 to her ex-friend Melina, and then during this run for Melina with the Women's Championship, she would be drafted to SmackDown in the 2009 draft, and the Women's Championship would go along with her to become SmackDown exclusive. So this run for Melina would be her 3rd reign as champion, lasted 5 months before losing it to Michelle McCool at the Bash in late June, which then made Michelle McCool the very first woman to have ever held the Divas and Women's Championships in WWE history. Now, in this reign for Michelle McCool, we would see the formation of Lay Cool as 2009 came to a close going into 2010. The women would feud with Mickie James with the old infamous Piggy James feud, which then also somehow led to Mickie James defeating Michelle McCool in quick fashion at Royal Rumble 2010, ending Michelle McCool's 7-month reign as Women's Champion. So Mickie James is now a 5-time Women's Champion, will be her final Women's Championship reign, and it would last only about 3 weeks, for losing the title back to Michelle McCool on the February 26, 2010 episode of SmackDown. So Michelle McCool's 2nd reign would then end 2 months later at Extreme Rules in a singles match against Beth Phoenix, in what was billed as an Extreme Makeover match, which is essentially a hardcore match. But due to injuries, Beth Phoenix's title reign would not last very long, and then this is where things get a little iffy. So on the May 14, 2010 episode of SmackDown, Beth Phoenix would put the title on the line in a Texas Tornado handicap match against both members of Lay Cool. In the end, Layla would pin Beth Phoenix to become the official champion, which will then make her the first ever Diva Search winner to ever win a title in WWE, first ever British-born champion, involving the women. And Layla would be recognized as the official champion, even though during this reign, Michelle McCool would defend the title on her behalf at times. So they would argue saying co-champions, but again, during this time, Layla was officially recognized as the sole champion. For a little bit, both women would even have their own women's championship belts during this reign, being once again proclaiming to be co-champions, despite once again Layla being recognized as sole champion. So then on the August 6, 2010 episode of SmackDown, McCool and Layla would go back to having one title and would tug on the belt that Layla was holding, only for the belt to then suddenly be split in half as part of a quote-unquote small scuffle. So that was the whole crack down the middle belt thing. So then Michelle McCool would defend the championship on Layla's behalf at Night of Champions against Melina in a title unification lumberjill match. So Layla's Women's Championship would be put on the line against Melina's Divas Championship. Michelle McCool would win, therefore unifying the Women's and Divas Championships, resulting in the Women's Championship officially being retired. And even though Michelle McCool was the official champion, both members of Lay Cool would try to be declared as Unified Divas Champion, but once again, McCool was the sole champion going from this point forward. So yeah, that was a lot to unpack within a 12-year period involving this championship with this specific design. hopefully you all learned a little bit something with some parts of history here. Now, the big question is, and I'm going to answer this for myself, my perspective, but I want to know in the comment section below, when you look at the women's championship design that we had during this 12-year period, who is the female wrestler that comes to mind when you see this belt? Because to me, it has to go to Trish. Lita would be a close second, but my mind instantly goes to Trish when I see this title. Maybe because, again, record-setting reigns, but again, like, she's probably the woman that I picture immediately when I see this belt saying, hey, this is Trish's title. She's synonymous with this. So again, let me know in the comment section below, who do you most recognize with this championship when you see it? If you enjoyed today's episode, folks, please remember, leave a like, subscribe with the bell turn on here on YouTube, and comment what you thought below. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out, and good day, everybody.